Talking cattle now and your bottom line. Sometimes a little historical context can help in understanding the true day-to-day cost of raising a cow. Here's SUNUP's Curtis Hare with Dr. Dave Lalman.
Well, we're joined by our OSU Extension beef cattle specialist, Dr. Dave Lalman. And Dave, about 10 years ago when I pretty much started at SUNUP, you did a segment about, the cost it takes to run a cattle on some land. What's changed since then?
Good question, a lot. To answer your question, actually, Curtis, we did one 16 years ago. It was the first time I went through these numbers. And so, yeah, it's fascinating to think about, the context of what has changed prices for cattle, obviously, dramatic change. And then the cost to run a cow has changed quite a bit.
So let's dive right into it. What's been the biggest kind of change? I imagine it's probably feed. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one of them. It still is the biggest portion of the budget each year, the cost to run a cow, of course, pasture and external feed costs. But when I arrived at OSU, I remember Dr. Sally Northcutt always used to say it costs about $1 per day to run a cow. So $365, not so much.
No, the good times.
2010, it was $615 per year to run a cow. Now that includes all of the costs, fixed, variable costs. The only thing we didn't include in that is the operator labor if you were going to pay yourself and you had the good fortune of owning the operation or being the primary manager of it. 2024, so about 67 ranches summarized in 2024, that cost was $13.48. So within $2 of being exactly double of what it was back in 2010. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You asked about feed. In 2010, feed was about $360 of the annual budget. Again, includes pasture and purchased or harvest feed. In 2024, it was $684. So if you do the math, that's not quite 50% or not quite double.
Yeah.
Right? And so actually the pasture and feed cost hasn't gone up as much as all the other expenses have. Now they've gone up a lot, don't get me wrong. But double would be 720 and it's 684 right now.
And what about pasture? Is it pasture conditions at all that are impacting this?
Well, they will. I mean, in drought years, you're going to have higher feed expenses, which includes pasture and purchase harvest feed, because you may have to go buy hay to get your cows through or concentrate feed or whatever. But it's interesting, if you break out the pasture portion of the budget since 2010, the pasture costs, if you're leasing pasture to graze, haven't gone up as rapidly as the other feed costs and interests and labor costs and machinery costs and so on. So that's interesting. It seems like the leasing rates are maybe a little bit behind the other costs associated with cow-calf enterprise. Now, here is the real shocker, I think. In 2010, average weaning weights, and back then they had about 107 operations in the data set. So it's a nice big data set. The average weight of calves sold, now that includes steers and heifers that were sold right around the time of weaning, was 576 pounds. In 2024, the average weight of calves sold was 553. So they've gone down. Maybe not much because they bounce around from year to year, but if we look at the data over time and you plot every single year, calf weaning weights in many parts of the country, particularly our part of the country, they're not increasing at the ranch level if you just look at phenotypic weaning weights.
And why is that? Because I'm obviously, even with high feed costs, that doesn't mean that producers aren't going to supplement feed and get their cows to the weight that they need to be at. So what do you think has happened?
We have more and more data over time that ranch environment is limiting the genetic expression of growth, at least at weaning. Now, I think the buyers know that when those cattle get to the feed yard, they just explode in terms of growth because you've taken the lid off of the environment by providing them with a high quality diet 24/7.
Well, there's a lot of change, as you said, and a lot of it's just kind of seems somewhat negative, but there are some positives as well.
Well, of course, and price would be the number one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we are, dealing with the.
I'm thinking 10 years ago, I should have got myself some cattle.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't we have all?
Yeah.
But yeah, so yes, or last week at OKC West, and if we average the steer and heifer price, much like these large data sets I'm telling you about, the average price last week would have been $412 per hundredweight of calf weaned. In 2010, that was $110. So they nearly quadrupled in calf price. And then in 2024, just last year, they were only $280. So $412 today. So, obviously, we're sitting right here at all-time record high cattle prices, but this will not go on forever.
Yeah.
And so I think, Curtis, one of the big take-home messages is for people to know what's going on at their operation. Know your costs of production. Know if your calf weaning weights are going up or if they have stabilized. And if your calf weaning weights have stabilized over time, it's probably time to shift your focus more to controlling cow costs rather than focusing on trying to swim upstream and increase calf weaning weight, because that's going to be more expensive.
Yeah. And of course, there's so much to get into, and you're actually going to be you're going to be starting a new series about this topic, and we'll have you on in a couple weeks. And this will be hopefully something that just kind of continues on just to help producers, right?
Yeah, you bet. It's time of the year we're starting to think about what are we going to do to supplement our cows and try to hold those feed costs down. So you bet. Happy to get into that.
All righty, thanks, Dave. Dr. Dave Lalman, OSU Extension beef cattle specialist here at Oklahoma State University.